Good evening. I'm announcing a BMOI under register number EG 2020-141. So my group number is 20, and my final year project was is the ontology-based communication and discovery for intelligent agents in multi-agent system. So based on my final year project, I selected a conference conference paper based on ontology-based communication related system, and the paper title goes on as like an extensible argument-based ontology matching and negotiation approach. Uh, if we talk about the authors and the application, Paul Mario and Nuno Silva are the uh, authors of the paper, and they both are from Political Institute of Portugal, from the GECAD Knowledge and Engineering and Decision Support Group Department. So, if we talk about the paper, it's a journal published on Science and Computer Programming Journal and published is elsewhere. And there's 95 volumes, and this paper goes on 3 to 25 pages. It is available online in 2014, January 31. And there are currently 9 citations on this paper. So let's move on to the base and what the authors saw and what are the problems that they discover on the ontology system. So basically, ontology, if we talk about the ontology, it is basically representation. Uh, Came from the idea from the Aristotle. Uh, so under the metaphysics. So basically, this does is using ontology, we can define a domain knowledge. It's like a JSON format. And for example, in ontology, that the data are describing about the existence about some domain or something. So basically, if we talk about myself, to be exist in the world, there are some certain criteria, such as I have a name, I have an age, and such other things. So same goes to the other domains. If you talk about travel domain, there are ontologies and there are specific common words to that domain. So when we talk about the heterogeneous systems, basically that means there are systems like e-commerce and distributed multi-agent systems. In those kinds, there are containing different multiple domains. For example, if we talk about the open mass system, mass means multi-agent system, there are there can be travel domain, there can be finance domain, there can be some other domain. So when we are going to negotiate or when we are going to communicate with both domains, there are so many conflicts when we are using ontologies. If we take up some analogy, imagine there is a person who talks in single and person who talks in English, and both are don't know their other person's language. So how they communicate? So for that problem, the both authors have uh, suggest a system that called augmented based system. So that's the motivation of their problem. So in this paper, they have proposed some approaches. As I mentioned, the extensible augmented framework based on three-layer augmented framework and plus public-private models, internally arguments, and modularity, and finally includes software development framework for future use. So, if we go on the deep dive into the methodology, so this is the proposed, as I mentioned in here, the basic based on three-layer argument framework. This is the basically three-layer argument framework. So, this is kind of as they describe, we can take an analogy as this is kind of a court. So there is a main judge. Imagine this is a main judge and these are the lawyers. So uh, what we what the authors have accomplished is, so the both lawyers as the real world lawyers are learned from the law college. So they have a common base ontology. So what the authors have accomplished in here is they have solved some kind of the bridge between that gap between the how to communicate heterogeneous ontologies using some kind of a common ontology from the beginning. So initially, if we talk about some kind of a ontology, that ontology is based on some kind of a common. So if there is a so many domains, the every domain ontology that is basically a template from common ontology. So from that common ontology, they can map to their individual domains. And when the communications came through with the different domains, they can use that mapping to understand what the other domain means and the matching. So this is actually the system architecture. As I mentioned, this is the public argument model that I mentioned as a common model. So as you can see, there are the private two models. So this is consider this is some kind of a separate one agent system with different ontology, and this is also some kind of a agent system with different domain ontology. But as I mentioned, there is a private argument model, which means they have their common knowledge. Sorry, they have their uncommon knowledge. That means the domain related knowledge. So for that domain related knowledge, that is basically came from this template. So as you can see, if they are going to uh, arguing and matching their mappings when the communication coming from, they can use the original base template and match those domain knowledge, and they can successfully uh, pass messages. So this is the main thing that the authors have accomplished through the extensive augmented base framework. So in the research methodology that they have mentioned, there are so many steps. So in the summary, they are, as the process they have using some kind. The first they have set up the whole system, and they have some stages like data acquisition, augmented instantiation, uh, argument instantiation, argument evaluation, and agreement attempt. Likewise, they have break into some kind of layers to layers, and they have implement them separately. So for the research and analysis from this framework that the authors have accomplished to do, they have uh, resolved 80% of conflicts have resolved through this kind of system. That means they have accomplished 80% of accuracy when it's come to conflict resolution. That means conflict resolution means that when different ontologies, the heterogeneous ontologies are communicating, they have resolved 87% of conflicts, that is different matchings. And they have F score under 62.5%, and they have accomplished the argument exchange improved consistency and quality. And the special thing, the private argument model extensible support adaptability, which means that for the each domain they can develop their own knowledge. For example, as I if we go back here, like this is the part. So in this part, this kind of a common separate domain specific knowledge they can develop their own. So as the key takeaways for the my paper that they have mentioned about that extensible argument support, adaptive negotiation have accomplished, and shared and private models enable semantic flexibility and handle real world ontology heterogeneity, as I mentioned. And they have implements software framework enable practical implementation, and supports a negotiation aware semantic system. So these are the takeaways from this paper, and thank you.